Darlene Abraham is here.
That's my mom.
Yeah. Now my mom will be there too. Oh, we're
Nice.
live. All right. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in this beautiful planet. Earth on this journey together. Very special guest, Mary Abraham, here with us. She's a shaman, and we live close by, about 2 hours driving. And she lives in a paradise, another piece of the paradise of this beautiful valley here. And Mary, how are you doing? Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And tonight I'm doing really, really well. I feel like I've taken another step into honoring who I am and the path that I must take in this life. So feeling like I'm in a space of honoring that.
That's awesome. So I really appreciate you coming online here live and sharing your journey. And it's a very informal chat. So we'll be navigating through the theme of the ancestrals and one drum, which is the title that your guides told you to choose. So how do you feel about that?
When I was first guided with that information, I felt I felt an impulse of activism. I felt an impulse of movement and activation within myself. And then from there, I'd say over the last 10 days, it's really been escalating, culminating in a ceremony that happened this afternoon, which I think will just continue to grow. So it's every time I'm given a message, which is sort of like a mission, um, the choice to undertake it and to step fully into that request. Yeah, it takes a lot of courage, but also is, I don't know, I really like it. I really like it. So I feel really good about it, and had lots of great information coming through the ancestors this week, and especially today in ceremony and honoring the ancestors and our collective journey through time.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I had that impulse to connect with you, and we know that when we have the impulse, but we don't really know all the details about what is going to be or why, it just unfolds. We hear it from the heart as like, yes, let's do it, and here we are, and we're going to be unfolding tonight what this is all about too. So before we unfold more, would you like to share a little bit about your journey? How did you get here? How this all started with you?
Oh,
Well, people that don't know you, they
right,
can.
right. I often am asked this question, and personally, I feel like it is something that would take several days to share the intricacies of my journey up until now. I initiated into the Zulu tradition of the Sangoma about 15 years ago, and that was coming out of my third year as a professional educator in the public education system. And so I retired at the young age of 23 or 24, I can't really remember now, and then used that financing and also sold my house and most of my possessions to be able to afford a journey to South Africa, where the year previous I had gone with a group and had several activations that then led me to meeting other medicine people or sangomas while visiting South Africa, who would come up to me and speak in Zulu quite quickly, and my body would shake and I would cry, and the facilitator would translate and say, they're saying you have a calling, you must come train. And that happened several times on that trip, which was at the time frightening but not surprising. And then returning to Canada, choosing to follow through on that calling by leaving everything that, yeah, all of my career and kind of my life trajectory at that time. Just left it and moved to South Africa and initiated into the path of the Sangoma. I lived
Wow.
for a year with my teachers, and it's an oral tradition, so a lot of it was, you know, oral. Um, and your teachers don't necessarily tell you how to do something. They say, go ask your ancestors what this means or what this does, and then come back and share with us. And that was kind of how that training worked. So it really got me to open up and trust the messages I was receiving direct from an ancestor, direct from a plant, direct from the sun, direct from source, without a human in between, another person in between. And so that was a really powerful teaching that I received through my Zulu training, is the gift of trusting our messages and trusting what is given, what is shown, and then having the courage to face that and move into it and step forward. And it was, for me at the time, a very different way of living from the North American over-culture of reading the textbook, memorizing the whatever it is, and then copying it out on getting whatever mark you get on your test. It's a totally different form of educating and learning to trust yourself and your relation to nature and to energy, to God, to love.
What you
And
said
so,
that is very important, because the learning systems we are used to the uh, uh, on the western side of the world, especially, it's all this memorizing, using our minds instead of our heart, and trust is in our heart, right? Is the feeling, and this has been coming very strong for me this week. The whole week was about the heart, detached from the mind, and trust. So learning to trust the messages that we get is big, big thing in the path. So that's when we can actually eliminate the man in between us and the source, right?
yes, yes, yeah,
And very
definitely.
courageous,
It
very
takes a
courageous.
lot of courage. Yeah, even now, even after 15 years of acknowledging that I work in the unknown, um, yeah, it does take courage, but you also get used to it, and it only amplifies your trust in love. It only amplifies your trust in your calling and your own medicine and what is within. And so I also am really grateful for that challenge and grateful for that experience of both the North American training of the mind, and then the Southern Hemisphere and the Zulu tradition, which also now, after many years of meeting other medicine people, an indigenous way of being on the planet that is global. It's a global understanding. It's a global network. It's a lot of protocols, rituals, ceremonies that I learned in South Africa are similar throughout the globe. How to connect, how to communicate, ways to make offerings, how to introduce yourself to bodies of water, and there's just so much of it is similar across the globe. It just feels like an old network of understanding and being in communion. And so that's, yeah, I it does take courage, but
Absolutely. It's very interesting that you say that it has very lots of similarities on different traditions, and I find that with almost everything that is esoteric and metaphysical, like sacred geometry, you have the same patterns from different cultures and traditions, and all the truth knowledge. I think it's all connected. you can grab pieces from the puzzle from different sources. So I think we're at the time of connecting all of that. What do you think?
I would have to agree with you. What we're witnessing now, what I see is like a falling apart of old systems and structures that were imposed or put in place forcibly without consent. And those systems are now being shaken up, coming undone, unwinding, threatening the energy of control over civilization. That's all. We're all watching this kind of unwind, and with that is an increase of fear and anxiety and fundamentalism and racism and all these old energies that were a part of that traumatic overculture. And now as that unwinds and people are experiencing so much, whether it's release or maybe it's heightened anxiety, which seems to be most people I run into are starting to freak out quite a bit. Helping and supporting them drop back into the teachings of the planet and the teachings of the heart. I mean, this is the time. This is the time to connect. This is the time to remember. This is the time to love and share and give thanks and care for your neighbor. And even if you believe something different, that needs to be moved out of the way, the judgments, the paranoia, the you're wrong and it has to be this way, and if you don't do this you're this type of person. That's what we're seeing right now, all of this people attacking people, and that's not going to help the situation. If anything, if we can just hold together as things come undone and then support each other and remembering how to just care, just how to care.
And respecting individuality, right? Too, because we're like
Yeah.
one collective of individualities, but all connected, all parts of the same. And I totally agree with you that this time is the time to connect with the heart again. This heart thing has just been big this week. I,
Well,
I
even
I
as you're
had a little feeling of like, oh, maybe we're just being played out and nothing is gonna be good. And then I have a
mm,
very strong partner on that. He is like, no, 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 wait, don't lose your faith. You know, things are unfolding that way for a reason, and it needs to be that way because lots of people still need to go through some, I would say, challenges to finish unfolding all of that and releasing all of the traumas and the blockages that we've been accumulating from the system and from the ancestors and from ourselves experiences too. Some people haven't been doing the work for these years. That we've been preparing for that for years, but
yeah.
many people haven't. So we're now here ready to help the ones that are running at the last minute, feeling anxiety about the moments. But it's all good because it's gonna unfold in the perfect way.
I agree. And as you speak, I look at your background and I just see the rainbows and I see the portals of light opening and I see the cosmic support that I'm every day connecting to that frequency. And when I work with the rainbow, it's that unity consciousness. It's that we're all, like you said, a collective of individuals. And it's really important to honor your flavor, your color, your tradition, your thoughts. And in the last couple months in my practice, because as we age on our path, our capacity to support the earth or the collective consciousness increases. And then with that, I began to experience witnessing higher levels of suffering and trauma in humanity. And I became really challenged by that. It started to threaten my physical and mental health. And that was very destabilizing for me to all of a sudden, oh, now that's the reality. That's real. That is real. For some people, that experience, that's what they're experiencing. And I started to pray. That's, of course, my answer to all of my issues. Is the first thing I do is pray. And praying can mean so many different things to people. For me, it's an activation of an intention in the universe, calling on divine support for the greatest and highest good of all involved, to be basic about it. And what then happened, I started, which have several beings and allies in different realities or dimensions or frequencies that are in this rainbow network, that are part of the unified consciousness, and the awakened states of being. And they started to share with me different tools and techniques that would be really important for humanity today, and how to support people in unwinding from the trauma they've experienced in their mind. A lot of our history in the last 100 years or 200 years is like it's mental. And or even going back into the 1500s, we could go quite a ways back, but this increase of the brain taking center stage. So the first few meditations that I received, or technologies that I received from star nations and other beings, was to do with the amygdala, was to do with the section of our brain that contains old survival information, which again links in, if our psychic codes, into our genetic codes and the memories of our ancestors and what they needed to do to survive, is stored in their amygdala there, right? And so the star nations began coming in and giving me technologies to use in my mind that would help clear away these patterns of dissonance, of control, of oppression, of cruelty, all in there, all of how we've been surviving for the last however many hundreds of years. And then from there began to expand into like whole brain healing, which then worked its way down into the heart center. So for me personally, feel like I've always been a heart-based practitioner, and I have, traveled into different centers to see what it would be like to practice from a different center, from the third, from the seventh, from my root chakra, and they all have a different flavor. Personally, when I work from the heart center, I have access to more energy, and even physically, our heart has 60 times more electricity, generates 60 times more electricity in our bodies than our brain does. So it's actually a really powerful electromagnetic force in our body. But to access it clearly now for most of humanity, we have to clean the brain. We have to be cleaning our brains, and we're constantly bombarded by media and invisible Wi-Fi, human-made electromagnetic frequencies. Even this communication online's got the blue light that transfers through the optic nerve and moves into our pineal gland, which actually has tissues that store electricity in them. So the blue light in our screens actually penetrates the pineal gland and then offsets our circadian rhythms, and then we're seeing an increase in anxiety, sleep apnea, people don't have dreams anymore. All of this is related to the fact that personally, my experience is that all of this blue light and all of these waves that are now just like bombarding us constantly are increasing the electricity in our pineal. And there are tissues that just harvest this excess electricity,
It was
piezoelectricity. I'm not sure what
created.
it's
It
called.
was created by certain beings, right? And to keep us on that frequency. And I feel that the connection with the heart actually um, clears that. Even if we still have the bombarding, once we connect with the heart, this frequency changes, and we're in a totally different frequency. but we just got to get out of the mind of that conflict, which where the duality is always blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And I agree with you, but I feel my sense is that for those of us who have been living in a heart-based way, that's been unusual. It's an unusual and hard place for many people. And so the technology that was gifted for the brain clearing is to help people release the programs that are actually stopping them from connecting to their heart space. So there are like waves, like you said, beings or energies that are trying to stop us from living in that space. So by claiming sovereignty of our minds, claiming sovereignty over our own thoughts, supports our ability to get clear in that like pineal, so much of the psychic center, reclaiming our clarity, our clear vision is so clouded. And then from there, people have had more success realigning to their heart space. But because their minds are so impacted and shattered by so much stimulus and information, what do you believe? How do you feel about this? So much resentment, hatred coming out on media can really impact what's happening in our heart space. So for those of us who don't have empowered hearts or come from a trauma space or live in misery, or depending on what our ancestors went through, it's a hard one to feel, and a lot of people are scared to feel, and that's where those heavier energies are finding their place of power. Is, oh, people don't want to feel, and for centuries we've been blocked from feeling.
Exactly.
That
It's
comes
been
with
part
the
of the
truncation
program.
of our pleasure, and our relationship to our genitals and our root chakra have all been, also childbirth and conception. All of these energies have been taken and replaced with another system that stops us from identifying our choices, and how we want to bring life onto the earth, how we want to share love with others. And so unwinding the programming that's been installed in the minds of humanity was a gift from these star nations. And then as that comes out, people then, what I'm noticing is as their mind clears, they can reset their relationship to God, whatever God is to them, because the pineal and the goes up into seventh, goes up into source, the center of the universe. And if it's covered by another program, people forget, they go dark, they fall into that despair, misery energy. So clean it all off, reconnect to source, reconnect to unconditional love, and then that inspires the relationship to the heart once more. And it's just been it's powerful work, and it's so necessary. And this is what we're seeing across the globe too, is this polarization in humanity of people who are ready to love, and people who are so afraid of it that they fight it, and they fight each other. And so, but the power to love, and again, even our organ, the heart organ, has more electricity, has more connection, and nothing can stop that. Nothing will be able to stop the field of love. And no matter how hard they try, whatever they is, that energy to stop us from feeling our hearts, it comes back down to our own choice and our own sovereignty, the collective of individuals who honor and respect each other, regardless of where we come from, what we've been through, what we've have to endure, the healing we need to do, our perspectives, our beliefs. Shh, don't polarize. Don't polarize in this time of unfolding, in this time of like things breaking apart. If we can stay away from polarization and dehumanization, then yeah, we'll make it. Humanity will make it. I have a lot of faith in the field of love. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So yeah, feel your heart again. And it hurts. And a lot of us have ancestral grief and pain. And even in our own life, things that we've gone through, there's stored grief and unexpressed emotion in the heart space, which makes it hard for people to want to even go there. But this is where our power is as a people. This is where the old teachings come from. This is how they were translated through us, through through love, through the love field in all things, translates through the heart, through the heart. That's
Yeah,
the
we've
felt
been,
sense.
yeah, we've been hearing a lot of theories from different traditions and religions and ideas about love. But one thing is to have it conceptualized with our minds, and the other thing is to actually experience it. And this experience of unconditional love that comes from the connection to the heart, it's something that I would like to see if you can explain better, because it's so difficult to explain in words the feeling of when you're actually connected with this everything. I think the first time I remember having this connection, I was I don't know, maybe about 16, 17, and I was laying on the sand of a beach in Rio, and I was doing a meditation to completely relax and blend with the sand to actually become one with the planet. And then I was able to do that, and I started feeling that I was the whole planet, and I could feel the movement of the planet. And I was like, holy, this is amazing. And how can you explain in words, in concepts, this kind of feeling and connection, right? When you, when you get there.
You're asking hard questions.
Let's see what comes.
It's a feeling. It's a feeling. It's not a thought. It's a feeling. And in order to feel it, you have to have the courage to open your heart. You have to open it. You have to choose love. You have to choose your worth. You have to decide, I'm allowed to be a part of this. I'm allowed to feel. I'm allowed to forgive myself. I'm allowed to forgive others. I'm allowed to receive. I'm
I'm
allowed to
allowed.
be a part. I'm allowed to be a part of something. And it's not in the mind. It's a felt sense. It's a felt sense. In the human realm, it's a feeling. It's a feeling. And there's no separation. And in that moment, when we open to everything, the love in everything, when we open, love is all there is, and it's all there ever was. I don't know how else to explain it in words,
But
but
yeah,
the
I think
amount of courage.
you're passing it through your feeling because it's this
Well, of
energy.
course. How else can I explain it if I'm
Yeah.
not going to feel it? The only way. It's the only
Because
way. It's not a concept. It's not a concept. It's not a
it's not in the
concept.
mind. It's not in the mind.
No.
So I asked someone this week, do you know the difference? Because this person was in a very high level of anxiety, all in the mind, like what is gonna happen? Is it gonna be yes, no, blah, blah, and all this blockage is happening. And I was like, stop, 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 just like, go into your heart. Do you know the difference between your thinking there in between yes and no? And I think we have an unstable internet connection, and I apologize for the
Yeah,
technical
it is.
difficulties. But I've been having difficulty since the previous video I did in Spanish. So I don't know what's going on the internet today. Actually, today in the Mayan calendar, it's a challenging day. I was telling you about today was going to be a challenging day. It's a challenge of the dragon, the
Mm,
birth, giving birth as a mother to yourself, to be your own mother and
mm,
nourish yourself. And that's the challenge of the next 11 days, counting with today 12 days, because the wave of 13 days that started yesterday, it's the wave of the sun. So the objective of the 13 days is enlightenment with
mm.
the challenge of giving birth to a new self or giving birth to a new path and starting to nourish yourself. And that's the day today, the challenge of the dragon, the red dragon.
Yeah, perfect.
So I have I have the feeling, and I know a lot of beings came just like to bring us into the heart space. And it's okay, no words for that, just the feeling. And like this, I think these waves, these feelings we're just going through, all this internet connection that we're having. Everybody that is watching right now had that feeling.
Yeah. And that's the power of it also, is that it penetrates all the fields, all of the illusion, all of the separation. That's the beauty of it. Even in isolation, it can penetrate, and we're never alone. We aren't. We're always connected, and that's the illusion that only unconditional love can clear, can open our eyes to, awaken us to the illusion of separation. It's not real. Separation is not real.
And because of the institutions like religions that have almost like imposed humanity to have an intermediate in between them, all of us, and God or the source or unconditional love, we've been detached from that connection, always thinking that there's got to be someone in between us and the source that is going to come and save us. And we do have helpers, like, you have your spiritual guides, I have mine, but they they're not the ones saving us. We are the ones who have to make the work. Right? We call for help and they come and they show things, but then they say, okay, now you do the work. So waiting for someone to come and save us is not empowering, right? So as facilitators of this path of the heart, we give a push, but we're not the ones doing the work because we're like
No.
just facilitating.
Yeah, and part of it is that empowerment education that is so necessary, which is missing from most of our school systems. um, empowerment education, how to say yes, how to say no, how to ask for what you need, how to stand up for yourself, how to to express your creativity, sex education from a healthy perspective of unification and love based in
Mm.
spirituality. All of these things are missing from this traditional education system. And those are the pieces that we need to recollect. And personally, as in my practice, is about educating. How do we educate? How do we bring that education forward so people have access to those teachings, have access to those coordinates, and then find within themselves their own resources, teaching and empowering people to resource themselves to get to that place, to get to their healing, to move through their healing with their own sovereignty in place, their own authority, their own inner wisdom guiding them through it. That's the empowerment. That's what we need. So again, that individual sovereignty, that's claiming of our own bodies and the claiming of our own minds, and claiming of our own heart systems and our own electric frequencies. Are it's time to bring those teachings back. The system of control is falling apart, and what's rising out of it is the ancestors, is the old ancestors, the ones who used to walk the land and sing, and when you go out there you can hear them, and you follow their sounds, you follow their songs, you follow their medicines, you follow the wind, and they teach you and they show you how to live on the earth and be on the earth in harmony. And so slowly what I'm seeing, and participating in my own life with my own family, is returning education to the land, letting the land be the teacher, letting the water be the teacher, letting the wind do the teaching, letting the bug or the animal or the weather, do the teaching. And all we need to do is provide an opportunity for people to come out of this chaos and just step out into nature. And I think that's a positive byproduct with what's happening now too, is more people are going outside because there's nothing else to do, or they're staying inside and staying on a screen. And so that's another danger of the polarization that we could see too. So trying to find balance in both of those aspects as well, using the web as a medium for communication and sharing messages, and mediums, and empowerment education, and then giving each person an opportunity to choose for themselves how they would like to bring forth their own life force energy, and what do they want to participate in at this time, what energy do they want to bring forward and cultivate in themselves. And it's all
I
like empowered education, that's what's lacking. And so that's kind of where a lot of my work comes from these days, is empowerment. How can I empower my clients, my friends, my community to think for themselves and feel for themselves? It's the felt sense that is so important. That's what brings us to the home of the body and the touch and our sense perception, the sensuality, our eyes and ears and smell and taste and touch, and all these beautiful parts of the human body, and all the way, bringing it all the way into our bodies, all the way into our pelvis, reclaiming our pleasure, reclaiming our unity, as innocent as breath, as innocent as breath, relating to the earth in this way. Um, that's what's rising out of this thing that's falling apart, and that's really powerful, and that's amazing. And that's also why I feel like the healing in the amygdala is
was going to
becoming
ask about that. Yeah.
becoming so important, because we have ancestors from thousands of years ago who lived on the earth in a different way. But then you look at our ancestors from, current day, 500 years, give or take 500 years, uh, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of
Mhm.
cruelty. There's a lot
Something
of
something
cruelty.
occur to me right now because I'm from a generation that it was a trend to get children to cut their amygdalas out, and mine were cut out because and
Yeah,
if you had bronchitis, if you had the
oh, those are your tonsils. Your
Oh,
tonsils.
in Portuguese, they are amygdalas.
Yeah, the amygdala. Actually, because I do study the mind, because I find that's where we have the most dissonance in humanity is in the brain. And so I've been really working on the brain. The amygdala, here's like medical whatever
Mhm.
replica of our brain stem, which is like the reptilian mind. And inside of this beautiful, like, look at that, look at that, look at this thing. This is in your head. And inside of here is our amygdala, which is
Might be connected to the town. I think it's this, probably the tonsils are the outer layer of the amygdalas. I don't know.
well, then it would have to move down through the trachea and the
Mhm.
esophagus and through here. But the voice, like actually our necks, our throats, our voices also are in a phase or stage of reclaiming. It's also between the brainstem and the heart, our necks, our throats, our voices, that is also coming into a reconnection, speaking our truth, and not just repeating garbage that we're hearing somewhere else that may or may not even resonate. So
I love that.
getting into it, um, been working with that survival center in the brain that stores all of that ancestral survival codes, and then getting in there with the light frequency, so you can just breathe divine light in, you can access light, like heart light energy, and go right into the survival codes of your brain, that your ancestors' memories are stored here, and how they survived on the earth. And you can start unwinding this these layers of cruelty and oppression that have been a part of our ancestral history for 500 years or more. And then when we do that, it we then, like the star people I'm working with in my brain, go then from the amygdala to the hypothalamus, which registers if this is going to be a pleasurable experience or a painful experience, which then communicates to our pineal or our pituitary gland. And then the pituitary is like, okay, I'm going to create these hormones, and then I'm going to send it through the body. Uh, Pituitary also communicates with our pineal gland, which is our circadian rhythm connection and where we create melatonin. But here is this like network of communication in our brain before our brain says flood the body with these stress hormones, flood the body with pleasure hormones. We can actually get into that area of our brain using love, using, as we know it, that unconditional field of
Mm.
love, into the survival codes of our ancestors, and heal and unwind our ancestral history that has either been based in oppression or were oppressors themselves. So some of us have like a lot of mixed blood happening now. And so I'm coming across people who have, including myself, an oppressed people and the oppressor. They're both bloodlines inside one body. And what's happening on the planet is how we have to heal these bloodlines. We have to heal the bloodlines. And this is where the ancestors come in, because the old ancestors all had an earth web that they lived together on, a felt sense of connection across and through the planet. No interference, no cutting, no someone stealing your root chakra or stealing pleasure from your genitals so you can't connect to the earth, or implanting a religious sentiment in your seventh chakra so you can't connect to God. All of this, you can actually go in and start healing the relationships between all the different bloodlines that you carry physically. And then it's amazing the work that's happening. I'm seeing even in myself, but also in people that I'm working with, finally coming to love themselves as a whole
Mhm.
person, instead of feeling like I can only love my indigenous side, I don't like my white side, or I only love my white people and I don't love the colored side of it. Like, there, that's for like or this race and this race, and it could be the same color, but there's still old tribal warring energy in there. There's still, I need to own you, and this is my territory, and there's all this
Mm.
you fighting,
You know what I
but you
got
can go in.
years ago? I got this message that the experience we're having on Earth is an experiment that mixed different DNAs in one body, which is the human body, to experiment to see if we could harmonize all of these differences. And and DNA's ancestors, they come from out of the planet too. So we're healing galactic DNA and ancestors here. This is it's
And I'm glad you're
huge.
saying that, 'cause I wasn't sure how far I could extend that. But yes, also our star codes,
Mm,
and some of us also have supernatural codes and like otherworldly frequencies. And I also have worked with beings who were a part of that genetic mixing, which is still happening. But what we're seeing is this, like you're saying, a harmonic recalibration of genetic codes across the universe, like galactic and beyond. And so when we start cleaning our brains and cleaning the pineal and reclaiming our relationship the sun, to the sun, and then from the sun out into our solar system, and then reclaim our relationship to all of the planets and their orbits and what they are resonating, the sounds that they're making. Some of us have codes from Sirius, some of ours are Palladians, some are Arcturian and Andromedans, and we got so many star races coming through. And the ones that I'm working with are so helpful in harmonizing the genetic survival codes that are no longer serving and that
mm,
are based in control and oppression. That's what's happening right now. Right now, that oppression code is breaking apart. And then this harmonic
and that's why,
recalibration
yeah,
that
that's
you're
why there's so
speaking of
many.
is what's surfacing. Yes. And there's so many, and every time I go back into the extended field of this harmonic recalibration that's happening universally, there's more and more and more of them every time. Holy, there's more of you. Whoa, there's more of you. And then waves of them are showing up, like new ones. I'm like, I've never met you before, but they're coming like legions of light beings. Waves of light love frequencies are coming from, like, they must have left their place in the universe thousands of years ago to get here now. Like, there are beings coming here to
Mm,
support this harmonic recalibration. That's what they keep calling it, harmonic recalibration of the genetics of the universe, or galactic genetic codes.
mhm,
In the human energy field and humanity, we're seeing this in the old ancestors, we're seeing this in the indigenous uprisings, we're seeing it in the reclamation work that's happening, and eventually the restoration of the guardianship earth to the indigenous knowledge keepers, the wisdom that's installed in all of us. We all have this heart access, but there are people, humans stationed all around the world, who are going through this and have access to these ancient human ancestors who remember the star people when they landed, and the first relationships
mhm,
that took place, and the early civilizations of humanity that happened. All of this is like recalibrating and reawakening, and in our hearts, in our relationships. Some people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. But that's what's happening. And it's my life, my work, which also is my life. I don't separate my work from my life. Is amazing what I'm witnessing. It's challenging, and it's painful. There are waves of trauma and grief that are opening up and surfacing, layers of hatred and racism and fascism and all of this pus. It's like a infection that is like all this pus is now like coming out, and there's all these old ancestors underneath, and not just like human ones, but old earth beings like that come from the lava and come right, the crystal beings in the earth and the worms, and like they're all like pushing this infection out
Out.
of the body, out of the body, which is the earth. And the human body is a reflection of the earth in some way. So these old sick genetic codes, they are sick genetic codes that are surfacing right now and causing the dissonance. That's an illness. It's an illness in the genetics. It's a mix that didn't quite work, that generated an illness. And now it's our job to heal the infection and recalibrate it so that it can harmonize.
Yeah, and then those beings are betting on our power of connection to unconditional love to heal all of that, which is,
Exactly. That's
yeah.
why with the pandemic and the isolation and all of that that's happening is actually, it's trying to keep us apart, but at the same time it's only enforcing the courage and the strength that we need to have to persist, to persevere, to stay connected. Don't give up. Keep going. Don't give up. Don't give up. We're always connected. We're always, this isolation is temporary and not real. In the field of
No,
love, we can still touch and we can still feel. We just have to choose.
it's an isolation that it's also a learning to know that we're always connected no matter what. Like for people who are totally alone, because some people ended up on this isolation, living alone, and they are feeling that even more because they don't have contact with other people physically. But they are learning that they can actually connect in other levels to the whole thing. It's an opportunity that
Yes.
every single being on this planet is having right now, with the help of so many beings from everywhere. It's amazing when you look at it. It's like there's no way we can actually lose our faith on that, because it's big. It's big.
Yeah, and our job to continue to share that message and to continue to stand our ground and shine our radiate our light, or our consciousness, heart consciousness, only empowers other people we meet, even just in passing, even just at the grocery
Mhm.
store. If you're resonating that heart frequency and your heart consciousness, you're going to carry that wherever you go. And because your heart is an electrical force stronger than the mind, you can impact anybody you walk by, anybody you speak to, because you're resonating it. And that electric impulse, which I think is
Yeah.
also why there's a pushback with like EMFs starting to try and block the heart consciousness, but it's impossible. You can't. You can't.
Yesterday I had an experience that it was very enlightening. I went to the supermarket and I made a mask of crochet that has holes. it's just a, it's just to go mend with the system, but I can breathe on it. So I passed through the cashier. I looked at the cashiers and I looked at one lady. I was like, I'm going through her. And then I went through her, and then she looks at the mask. Oh, your mask is beautiful. And I say, thank you. And then she says, oh, I made this transparent one. And then she looks at me and is like, because I don't believe on this. And I said, I don't either. And then she started laughing, and I started laughing. And then I told her, well, it's very nice to meet somebody that is happy, because we, we're we're rare now. So very nice to see your happiness here. And we, like, I laughed and she was laughing and I was laughing. I was like, this made my day.
The joy,
The
the
joy, the
joy.
joy.
Yes, and that's a tool. That also is generated in the mind, like a chemical that floods through the body as well, from triggered from amygdala to hypothalamus. The joy frequency that we generate in our heart also can like create chemicals in our body that make us stronger, healthier, more vibrant, more fertile, more alive, more able to take risks. The thing again that we need to be careful about is this polarization. People who believe it's real, people who don't believe it's real. Wherever they stand in that, we still need to choose to resonate that unconditional frequency. So regardless of who's where in the spectrum of belief, we can find a way to stay connected in joy, in love, in positive regard. And then this other piece that comes up for me too is this justice that keeps coming up. Justice. There's a lot of like justice. Stay away from revenge. Don't go anywhere near it. But justice is really, simply put, love in action. And so if we can rewire our thought of what justice is, to bring somebody or something to justice, because that's what we're seeing in the human field is like righteousness of this is the way, this is, and it's like, whoa, let's just like take a look at the real
Exactly.
scales of
You know,
justice. What is the
like,
real scale of
yeah,
justice? Is this
balance.
balance, the
Yeah,
balancing act,
which gives you
balancing
the
act.
wings.
Yes, to open, and in the middle is this resonant heart piece, is a resonant heart piece. And so that's regardless of where you are, uh, we have to work to keep the balance. Those of us who are in the center point, what this people, even what we believe, sometimes we have to suspend to keep the balance so that the field stays connected. And it's like in the world of the shaman, politics is a completely different system, and well, yes, there's all this stuff happening, but I'm going to relate to the health of the planet, the health of the planet. And if the planet is in crisis, all of my shaman alarms are like, now you take action. Now it's time to take action. Not there's an election coming up, it's time to take action. No, for me, it's the earth is in peril. Let's take action. It has nothing to do with politics and has everything to do with the natural way of being on our planet. And so how do we balance that? And then same, keep coming back. So where's justice is for me, that center point is love in action, not revenge, not I need to prove you wrong, I need to prove that I'm right, if you don't get the vaccine, I'm not going to love you. Like, okay, well, let's just, how about we just love in action? How do we bring our focus and our daily awareness to wholesome, being wholesome with our bodies, being wholesome in our relations, being wholesome with the earth, and encouraging love in action wherever we go, whatever we believe. Let's drop this bullshit that's happening and refocus, excuse my language, refocus on love in action. And is that not the true service to all things? So relating that, rewiring, that's the new survival mechanism. That's what we want to start bringing into the brain, is love in action, not cruelty in action, not oppression in action, but love in action. And not this mental concept of love in action, but this felt sense of love in action. It's
That's beautiful.
mm.
And, we're getting close to uh, folding up or whatever the expression is.
Letting go,
I'm
opening.
so like, but I know you're teaching a few seminars, and I saw in your newsletter that you have one in February starting. I think is that the next one? So how
Yes.
can
So
people connect with you, and what is it going to be about?
okay, so the webinar, it's a series of 5 meditations that I was gifted by the Star Nations, there's the guardians. There's several different beings that I've been working with to support my work in the expanded field and the amount of grief and pain that's surfacing right now. So these are beings that came to me and said, here's a tool for you, and you work with this, and then the next one would come and say, now from here you go here. And then so there's a succession of 5 meditations that I was gifted by this universal consciousness to support the healing and transformation of old survival mechanisms in our brain that are no longer serving, and then translating it into an increased capacity of compassion and mercy for all beings, and this reclamation of our own sovereignty to the earth and sovereignty to source, whatever that is to you. So I'm just finishing a first wave right now, my first time teaching it, and then I'll start another round again February 7th for 5 Sundays in a row. Class is about 1 hour long, time for Q&A afterwards. So it's on my website, and the title of the webinar is called Alchemical Ascension. And so it does work with shifting our genetic codes and the harmonic recalibration of this universal web of interconnectedness that is really expanding and wanting to develop through humanity and on our earth. So if
Wow.
you want access to those meditations, register, invite your friends. A lot of it is sovereignty-based teaching and education empowerment. So
And what time is it going to be on Sunday?
the waiting room opens at 8:30 a.m. That's Vancouver time. And then the class begins at 9 sharp and ends around 10. The meditations usually run for about an hour, sometimes an hour and 15 minutes, depending, because naturally as we open and there's more downloads that come, and I'm sure every wave of this webinar will be different than the one before, but yeah, 1 hour, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. with Q&A afterwards for half an hour to 10:30. If you choose to stay, that's optional. But I'm having a great time, and the people who are in the course right now are loving it, and it's really helping them shape their path and make choices on how they want to move forward with what's happening on the planet at this time. So the teachings, even when I was gifted them by the Star Nations and Great Mother who showed up, they said, you must share these teachings. People must, it's so important now that people claim their thoughts. There's too much propaganda happening. So it's really important we claim our thoughts and then resonate our heart truth into the mind. And so that's basically what those meditations are about, reclaiming our sovereignty and then moving forward from a harmonic, recalibrated space of unity consciousness based in love.
Awesome. So I put your information down on the description below the video. The link to your website is there. So yes,
Okay.
please register, because this is the most important work we can be doing during this time. I don't think there's anything more important than this connection and release of old patterns right now. So
Yes. Yeah.
I'm very thankful to having you here, and I feel a big connection to you since I met you, remet you, I
I
think, on
feel the
this
same
planet.
way.
And
And just on a closing note, the All Ancestors One Drum, that is the title of this talk, is because all of us, from wherever we come from, including our star codes, that we must resonate to the same heartbeat. The drum is the heart. The drum is the heart. And so all of the ancestors, all the ancient ones are asking us and calling us to move towards harmonics. It could be a polyrhythm, that's totally
I'm
fine,
gonna say
but it's the one
harmonize,
pulse.
harmonize.
It's
All the
that, it's that
voices
one pulse.
beat. The beat of the
The
heart
the beat
together,
is the beat,
synchronizing.
the drum. Yes. Yes. All
I,
nations, all cultures.
I was gonna bring my drum here tonight, but then I thought if we do drumming here, Zoom doesn't synchronize. This is something that is gonna be live.
Yes. So that's why we educate online and then we close off and then we have our own experience out in nature, that felt relationship, that
Drumming.
felt connection that we get. We're feeling it now through this, but also when we go outside, try and just feel, give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to feel.
Perfect. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
just say ask if anybody has any questions. Well, you can always ask questions, and we'll have to do it this again, and maybe questions for the next time too. So, so if you so uh, unworthy, I mean, like word of words, no words, not unworthy of not
Unworthy. Okay.
worthy.
Got it. Got it.
All right,
And
sister.
it's so nice to thank you for again for inviting me. It's an honor to be connected to you and our shared path in this same purpose and intention. And to all of the viewers, so much love for all of you and where this journey takes you. May you may you live in your highest harmonic frequency with all things, including yourself.
Yeah, it's something we've been. This is a moment we many of us have been waiting for, and it's here now. So it's time for action, and it's action.
It's time for action.
It's from within. It's not the fighting action outside. It's you know. Yeah.
Yes, it's time. Love
It's
in action. Love in action. It's
love in
time.
action.
It's time. It's time.
All right. So
Okay.
everyone, thank you. We're very thankful for you guys hanging on until now there. Thank you. Thank you for your comments and for your love, because I've been feeling a lot of love coming from the comments there too. And thank you again. Click like and share and all these things from YouTube to me because this is important messages to share right now to keep our vibes expanding, increasing, harmonizing.
Hmm.
All
Empowered.
right, empowered. All right.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Bye, everyone.
And